Thanks. Good evening, everyone. This is super exciting. I just want to echo everyone's thanks to the hosts and hostesses for this opportunity to sit with this art and reflect on the feelings that shaped it and the experiences that it will shape for those who interact with it. It's like, this is my idea of like a really rockin' Thursday night. But jokes aside, I think this kind of conversation is really, can really enrich the relationships that people have with art. So I welcome every opportunity for that.
Yeah, for sure.
So Shana, we met about, I guess, a year or so ago. And I came across your art online.
Yeah.
And I remember being like immediately struck by just these really strong lines and the juxtaposition of that strength of the shapes and lines with the softness and sort of lusciousness of the texture. Then it's kind of did the double click to learn more about you and your story. And once I read kind of how you came to start making art and what motivated you to keep at it, I knew just intuitively, like I needed a piece of this art in my home. And so I'd love for you to share with this group a little bit about how you came to that moment, how your journey into making art.
For sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Emily, so much. You've said a lot of really kind things, and I'm so glad that you found me and honored for you to have one of my pieces and excited to be here. So I definitely would say I had like a non-traditional path to becoming an artist. I was always a creative child. I was always experimenting with different mediums and things, and I was kind of the friend in the friend group that, I would be like, oh, you like that? I can make that, right? So whether that was like sewing something or beading something or painting something, but I guess I can say in terms of my adult art career, it started in 2017. I had a really unexpected and sudden stillbirth with my first child. Was very late term. And so that kind of like colored everything for me. I felt like I didn't have anything left to lose because I had already lost everything at that time. I studied social work. I was working in social work, working with children and families in kind of like a heavy setting. And I just didn't want to go back to that work. And so I started creating. So I started watercoloring, and I was kind of drawn to making figures. And I started deconstructing that figure into shapes, which is kind of like what I'm doing more now. But my husband he's here. He was really supportive at the time. He's like, if you don't want to go back to social work, if you just want to, take 6 months, try it. Let's see what happens. Like if you just want to put yourself into art. And so that's kind of what I did. And I made like an Etsy shop and a website and Instagram, and just kind of got a great response from it, and it just kind of snowballed. Sometimes I don't really know exactly how it happened, but I got connected to the really rich arts community here in Richmond. And now, 7 years later, I've been doing art full time, and I'm here with you people. It's wild. So I'm still learning and figuring things out all the time and trying to expand my practice. But it kind of started from a place of grief and a place where I needed hope and direction, and I found it. Yeah.
And I think, first of all, appreciate your willingness to share that, because I think that while maybe none of us have been through that exact experience, there are elements of that experience that may speak to many of us. It certainly spoke to me and was something that I wanted to have in my home and kind of hold in my heart at all times. So I see different things in the structure, and I see different forms at different times of life. But I always think of my family and my children and carrying them. So you said kind of you started making art as a way to process grief, and I think we talked about this earlier. But does it still sort of fill that same need for you in the act of making?
Totally.
Or has its role in your life evolved with time? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I think creating for me definitely changes seasonally. Sometimes I'm just trying to get my hands in, get dirty, trying to trying to make anything, kind of push the limits of my practice and figure out what's next. Sometimes it's more sort of more like a job, right? Where I have a commission, or like there's a project that I'm working on, and it's more sort of like a service that I'm doing. And then sometimes it's quiet, and I'm left kind of like wanting to create more, and so I'm just like waiting for inspiration to come to me, waiting for something. But I will say that the process of creating throughout my life as a constant has been like a life raft for me, for sure. It's been an escape, it's been a refuge, and I'm so grateful to have it. It is, for me, when I'm creating, it is meditative. It's quiet a lot of the time. It's a way to kind of silence my mind in the outside world, which is, with these works in particular, we'll talk about them a little bit more, but I'm trying to find that structure and balance and calmness with my pieces. And so, yeah.
It's evolving.
Yes,
but
it's evolving. Yeah.
maintain some of the
Yeah. I feel so
initial.
grateful to have it. And also for communities like these. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, everyone at Bond Millen, for uplifting creatives like myself. It's really incredible.
I'm going to talk a little bit about your form
Yeah.
and the materials that you're using.
Yes.
Which are they're so unique. You're kind of pushing a variety of mediums here. It's sort of part collage, part paint, part sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about the materials you've chosen.
Sure.
And what they mean to you.
Sure. So for these, well, I've always sort of been drawn to kind of like the language of shapes. I like the recognizability of it. These pieces in particular, I feel like they're something that you've seen before, but like also haven't seen before. And so for these pieces in particular, first when I started making art, I was drawn to like impressions. And so I started with block printing. And so that's carving into like a piece of linoleum and inking it and stamping it. And then I sort of wanted to find a way to push that forward. So I was really interested in, I had experimented with sculpture a little bit with wire, and I kind of wanted to find a way to merge painting and sculpture, which is how these pieces came up, which I call my still shapes collection, my still shapes body of work. And so something interesting about these that kind of revealed themselves to me after I was making them is that they play really interestingly with light and shadow because of the 3D nature and the different dimensions of it and the texture. The texture is really the soul of the piece. But they look different at different times of the day, depending on how the light sort of hits them, and they can kind of trap time in that way. In terms of the materials for the collage portion, I experimented with some different materials, but I landed on a foam because it keeps the piece physically light, which was important to me. The color, this one is sort of like a tan, but I'm drawn to these like pure neutrals because I feel like they really translate the soul of the piece best. And then the texture. So I use pumice. I brought it for like a little show and tell, but pumice stone, it's used in the beauty industry as like an exfoliant and, in some beauty projects, but it's a volcanic rock. So it is magma that has cooled, and I didn't really know a lot about it when I first found it. So you crush it up, it comes into like a powder form, and then you mix it with some other mediums to make it spreadable. And I love the texture that it brings, but also looking into it a little bit after, it has metaphysical properties. So it's said to be a really grounding stone. It's said to absorb negative energy and give calmness, which is really interesting, knowing after the fact that I was making these pieces that I was drawn to this material that gives off such calming, grounding energy, when that's kind of that's why I got into this in the first place, right? And that's what I'm trying to channel when I make these pieces. So it's kind of crazy that it all came without really,
created it for you.
Right, exactly.
I know.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So you kind of alluded to this just now, but what is your hope that people experience or feel when they observe your work or when they interact with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think just with any artist, you want, when somebody's experiencing your work, you'd want them to feel something, right? So I just hope that my piece creates some sort of intrigue. It kind of makes you take a moment to view it, to see it. I think my work has a sort of like quiet complexity to it where it invites you to come up close, take a closer look. You're interested in knowing what it's made out of. You want to touch it. A lot of people want to touch it, which you can't. You could touch it. Or you could touch this. But so, I mean, I think that there's really just something beautiful, just simply, you know, if you could say what you want somebody to feel about something that you create, that it just inspires people to just take a moment. Yeah.
I think it succeeds at that. And I definitely notice, I have a piece hanging in my stairwell and it changes, you know, every time I pass it. I sort of see it in a different light, which is very special.